The views and opinions expressed on this show belong solely to the hosts and their guests and do not reflect the views of any on-site institutions unless explicitly stated.
What's up, everybody? My name is Steve Vanderwall.
And I'm Justin Klosser,
and we're your hosts of Cannabis Cum Laude, a podcast devoted entirely to cannabis. We're going to talk cultivation, business, medicine, politics, culture, advocacy, and everything in between.
The cannabis industry is complicated. It's robust. It has a lot of moving parts, and it's our job to help you understand it just a little bit better. So tune in every week for a brand new episode. And if you have a question that you'd like answered on the show, send it on over to questions@cannabiscumlaude.com. Thanks. Enjoy the show.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Cannabis Cum Laude. Steve and Justin here. And today, we have the pleasure of interviewing Sam Q Grows Houston. Q is the founder and CEO of CannaBuzz, a cannabis community and social networking platform that has over 120,000 members worldwide. He is also a cultivator in the San Francisco Bay Area. Part one of this discussion is going to be focused on the CannaBuzz platform, while part two, we're going to take a deep dive into cultivation. Q, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. We both are big fans of yours, following you on CannaBuzz, on social media. It's a real pleasure to have you, so thanks for the time.
Yeah, no, thanks. I'm excited to talk with you guys.
Yeah, so right off the bat here, I'd like to dive right into, what was your inspiration behind founding CannaBuzz, or your origin story, if you will?
Yeah, so it's kind of two things at once, or, two kind of things coming together. One is I just hit my phone and almost knocked down the ashtray, but luckily that didn't fall.
Crisis averted.
Party foul. But yeah, I started, my background is in community management. So that's my professional background. I've been building communities. I started out in the video game industry, and moved out to the San Francisco Bay Area and worked for tech companies. And I still do right now. That's how I pay the bills, is building communities for companies, businesses, whatever. And so anyways, that was my tech background. And then kind of coupling that with my interest and passion for cannabis. So like you said, I grow my own. And I started growing out pretty early on in terms of my basically what happened is cannabis legalized here in California. It went recreationally legal, and my girlfriend bought some CBD and I smoked it. And for the first time, weed didn't give me a really bad panic attack. And I saw how, cannabis could really help me with, the things that I took pharmaceuticals for, things like anxiety and depression. So I really became passionate, and I started growing cannabis as well. Once I realized that weed is really expensive when you go out and buy it regularly. And luckily my girlfriend was cool with me growing it. And the state had just legalized it. And so pretty quickly early on in 2018 at the time, is also around that same time is when YouTube and Instagram really started cracking down on content and started deleting a lot of channels. And that's when kind of the light bulb went off for me at first, which was just that frustration with all of these, some of my favorite YouTube channels getting their content taken down or getting deleted, for a period of time, or just deleted all up. And then the same thing on Instagram. And so that was kind of when the light bulb went off for me, in terms of hey, I need to do something here, or maybe I could do something here if nothing else is going to happen. And so fast forward a year later is when we finally launched CannaBuzz. I had met later, in 2018, I met a guy who would later become the co-founder of CannaBuzz. His username is JR Token. And it was JR Token, hitting me up after the Emerald Cup here in California saying, hey, what do you think about starting a cannabis social network? Because he had learned that I was a tech nerd, and he was just a passionate grower that's really hooked into the podcast, The Dude Grows Show. And we both met at the Emerald Cup and we chatted, and he hit me up afterwards. And it was kind of one of those things where I had already been thinking about it before that. And so it was someone hitting me up saying, hey, what do you think about this idea? Out of the blue, he had brought this up. And that was kind of what pushed me to, hey, we need to figure this out. And so we launched 2 years ago. It was on 420 of, I guess that would have been 2019. And it's been really great. You know, we just recently passed 120,000 users, and we have a really great community of people, of growers, of smokers, of people that use cannabis for their mental health, or maybe they're an artist and they love making art and they also love smoking pot, or whatever the situation is. We have a really cool community of just a whole diverse group of people that love hanging out.
Yeah, that was one thing when I made my profile that I really liked, and it kind of said, you know, where do you fit in? You know, is it medical cannabis? Is it cannabis business? Are you a smoker? Obviously, I checked all boxes because I'm interested in meeting a ton of people, but there's probably people out there who's like, I just want to talk to medical patients, or I'm just interested in cultivation. I like these very, you know, I really like the curation that you guys have brought to the table. That's huge. I know personally as a cannabis business owner, I own a small business in the CBD industry. I've had my Facebook account shut off. My Facebook ads account is still deactivated 2 years later. I was doing advocacy work for a group called Rock Normal a few years ago, and literally all we were doing to build our network was finding, you know, trending news articles related to cannabis politics or whatever. We'd post them with a little, you know, tagline, and then we would boost them, and we were getting tons and tons of traffic. It was such a glitch, right? And all of a sudden, you're promoting cannabis content. I'm like, well, I guess so, but this is news. So, you know, I props to you, because the biggest thing, one of the biggest hurdles in the cannabis industry right now is marketing and reach. So having a cannabis specific platform, I know for my personal experiences, would just be so beneficial. So, in terms of the platform, what are some of the unique features of this platform?
Yeah, so what's you know, what's really cool about CannaBuzz is it's got a couple of kind of key things. One of which is the way that the app works. When you load up the app, you see your home feed, and that feed is a feed of everyone that you follow or the groups that you follow, because we have groups as well. If you follow a group, or you follow a person, all that content goes into your home feed, and it goes in chronological order. So it's not like some fancy algorithm deciding like, here's something from 2 days ago, and here's a thing from just now, and here's a whatever. Like, I get really frustrated when you see, like, when you're scrolling on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and it's hard to, like, why am I still seeing the same shit from 2 days ago?
Yep.
You know, and so with CannaBuzz, it's all in chronological order. So, you know, the stuff that you see in your feed is most recent, and you just scroll down and you know, you'll see everything. We're not, you know, selecting what's seen or whatever. The other cool thing is the groups. So with groups, you know, you can find people that are passionate about the same thing as you, or maybe you live in the same state or the same country and you want to just connect with other people. We have groups for all that stuff. So that has been really cool. And that's been one of the things that has helped us, I would say, just like kind of unlock even more potential. Because when people go from like just posting photos of their plants, which is awesome, by the way, I post a lot of photos of my plants, but you know, you get also people connecting over their, you know, path to sobriety and how cannabis has helped them. Or you have people talking about the best way to make RSO so that you can take cannabis to help treat your cancer or help fight your cancer. You know, all these different things that people are having these conversations through these groups because they're able to find those shared interests. Those are a couple of our main things. We have some of the features that if you were coming over from an Instagram or something, you'd kind of come to expect, but we also have, it's kind of a hybrid approach. So you can post text, which is really cool, and you can post links in the text. So that's great if you want to promote your website or your business or whatever it is, your passion project or your YouTube channel. You can post links to those things. So that's a great thing. Like if you have a live stream, that a lot of, I noticed a lot of grow YouTubers, for example, they have like live streams on YouTube. They should post those links on CannaBuzz and say, hey, we're live now or whatever, because we support links. But you could post photos, videos. You can post lengthy videos as well. And we also have an upcoming big revamp of our live stream feature that I'm super excited about. That'll be kind of similar to how Instagram's live stream works in terms of, live chat overlaid, and you could like have little emoji responses and stuff. So I'm super pumped on that. That'll be coming out later this summer. So those are a couple of our key things. I think there's there's a lot of different cannabis social networks out there, and a lot of them you get to see everyone's like approach to uh, social media, I guess, and how you would do that in the cannabis context. And there's others that are like dating focused. There's others that are focused on like finding someone near you to like go smoke with or whatever it is. And we're not like that. We're just focused on, sharing your content and finding people that are those shared interests, and really forming a solid community at CannaBuzz. That's been one of our key focuses, again, because my background is in community. We're very, very focused on just having a great, positive, and welcoming vibe at CannaBuzz, and that's been great. Whether you're a grower or just new or whatever it is, we want you to feel like you're welcome and you can ask a question and it's cool and everything like that.
Yeah, it's really nice. I think how like having a platform that is cannabis based, it like breaks that first barrier, right? That's going to have somebody going out to like maybe be scared to ask a question on Instagram because they don't want their boss to see it, or go talk to somebody on Facebook. If you're already in that community, everybody there is a supporter of the community. You can be in a safe space to ask questions or share your own knowledge even, right? I think that's awesome. I saw on, kind of shifting gears a little bit, I saw on your Instagram actually a couple posts about Mass Roots, and it seemed like people were maybe comparing you to them. And I had honestly never heard of this platform before even. So I went and checked it out, and it doesn't look to me at all like it's social media. So can you like kind of explain that a little bit?
Sure. So the reason why I was talking about them is Mass Roots was like the first major cannabis social network. But you're right. You wouldn't know that today, unfortunately for them. But basically, they were really early. They to their credit, I guess, they launched a cannabis social network. I want to say 2017, maybe even earlier than that. I think their company website says it was way earlier than that, but I know they were definitely around like 2016, 2017 kind of ish time frame, and they were really popping off. And what they did is they went out and they raised venture capital money to build this like consumer social network for the cannabis community. And then at some point they went public on the stock market, like the over the market, stock market, or whatever the situation is. I'm not sure, but essentially they've really struggled, and that's why now they're not really online anymore, even though their website kind of says they are. And that's why I was posting about them on my profile, because a lot of people compare us to Mass Roots because they were big and splashy when they came out. They would sponsor big festivals and it'd say like Mass Roots everywhere, and they got to I think like 1 million people. Oh. So that was people's like first impression of the cannabis social network space. And unfortunately they just struggled because they this kind of goes back to how I formed CannaBuzz from the get-go. I've worked at tech companies that have raised tens of millions of dollars. And if you look at other companies that are trying to compete with the traditional social networks, if you use Clubhouse as an example, they're one of the new upstarts. They've raised like several $100 million to try to compete with Facebook and Twitter. And I just knew that's not something that I want to do, because I've seen what happens. Once you have a board of directors of all these rich people, they're going to, steer you towards like making money as fast as possible or whatever that situation is. And that's hard to do in a space like this, right? Where we're like, we're just waiting to be able to have legal banking, man, let alone like be able to do everything else in the cannabis space. And it just takes a while. Some of these things take a while. And so with CannaBuzz, I was able to partner with a friend of mine who builds the platform side of things, but that platform is built for other customers as well. So I'm not needing to like raise $500,000 or 2 million or whatever it is to build this platform. We're able to like utilize this other platform, and that enables me to focus on the community. And that's where I think another question was about our membership system. Our membership system where people can support us kind of like a Patreon, that enables us to really be community supported and community focused rather than worrying about if we have enough advertising reach or whatever the situation is.
Yeah. So do you worry? You had mentioned something about finding banking and running into financial issues. That's something that all of us in the industry are struggling with. Are
Yeah.
there concerns with monetization of the platform through the membership drive? Is there any risk? Does the company run any risk from raising capital from members, even though it is just content? I don't know if do you sell products on there, or is it strictly content?
Well, we're definitely like, yeah, that's what's one of the frustrating things about being like even cannabis like affiliated or whatever. We have nothing to do with like the cannabis plant or whatever directly, right? We're just a website basically, right? With an app, and we're this online community. And we do sell like, CannaBuzz hats and shirts and stuff like that. But that's it, and we have struggled. I mean, I have a check right here from Bank of America because they shut down our Bank of America account and sent back the money that I had in it. Um, and we've struggled with other payment processors because, CannaBuzz, when I started the company, it's called CannaBuzz. And so, we have to kind of figure out creative solutions there, even being, like I said, we're not plant touching or whatever. And that's super frustrating. It's just because we have cannabis stuff on our website or whatever the situation is, it spooks people.
Yeah, merchant services and processing is something that I struggled with for the last 3 years. I've had every
Yeah.
Venmo, PayPal, my merchant services credit card shut off. I was making a living on my CBD business, and one day they're like, "Well, we're no longer going to process your business. You're shut off." And it's like, this happens regularly on a day-to-day basis, and
Yeah.
especially in the cannabis industry. We were operating in the legal hemp and CBD industry, so I totally feel your pain. When you say it's very tough to, I never thought the toughest part of running a business was finding a bank to take my money. You never thought that in a million years,
Right.
but it's the reality of this space. But
Yeah, I mean, it's this place or this space throws you a lot of curveballs,
yeah,
and I'm glad that I was able to set up this company in a way that we can focus on the community and kind of roll with those punches, those challenges, I guess, rather than kind of being under the gun, so to speak. But yeah, I totally hear where you're coming from.
we had talked a little bit about your monthly live shows. Give us a little bit of
Oh, okay.
an overview of what that looks like. It looks really cool.
Yeah, so we have our monthly live shows. That's something that we
That's
started. We started about a year and a half ago or so, I want to say, maybe even longer. But we really started doing them pretty regularly, like during COVID, in the past year. And so we've got one coming up this Saturday, May 22nd at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And that one will have a panel of growers talking about growing cannabis outdoor, like in your backyard or something like that at home. And so we've got Seattle Chronic Seeds and Dragon Flames Genetics. They're both breeders that have experience growing outdoor. And then we also brought in a community member. Her name is Flower Reef, is her username. And I hit her up because she always posts like beautiful photos every fall and every summer from her greenhouses. And so that's another cool thing in our community. With these live streams, every month we try to create content for a community that is educational and interesting. And we also try often to pull both experts, from the wider cannabis community, but also people from the CannaBuzz community, so that we can put them in the
yeah.
spotlight. And that's been really cool to find people that just have a lot of cool experiences or really cool backgrounds or really interesting, deep interests. And so, yeah, that's part of the content that we put out for the community. We have podcasts and video interviews, kind of like this, that we do some as well each month. And that's part of us trying to create educational content or interesting content. And at some point, maybe we'll do more fun content as well, just to help educate and entertain our community. And our community, like I was saying earlier, we've really kind of come into our own in the past, like, I don't know, 6-7 months or so. We've come to be this really awesome welcoming place. And so it's kind of like this online hangout like club where people love to smoke weed or talk about weed as much as you want. And with that membership service that I mentioned earlier, it enables me to spend more time on it, where before I was spending all my own money on supporting it and making sure that everything is taken care of, and also just spending my own time, because it takes time to moderate or let alone create content for a social network. So anyways, the membership service helps me do that. And then we're also doing a thing where every year we have a higher tier of membership. Every year we send them like custom swag. So we're creating like really cool art and stickers and things like that to create really cool cannabis gear for our community.
Absolutely. Do you want to talk a little bit more about like what those memberships look like as far as,
Sure.
I don't know, price point and maybe like what comes along with it?
Yeah, so we have our $8 a month membership, which we call CannaBuzz Premium. And that's really like a tier to just support us and also get early access to those interviews. So like, for example, when we just launched this on 420. So as a recording, that's like just about a month ago. So in those first couple of weeks, I asked the community, hey, what kind of stuff would you like to learn about? And one of those things that came up was autoflowers, right? So and then they suggested talk to this particular person. So I reached out to Full Duplex from Mandalorian Genetics. He's a big autoflower breeder from the Autoflower Network. And we interviewed him, and I gave the community like a week's early access to that interview. So we're just doing things like that to try to build value for those premium subscribers. And then we also have a $20 a month tier that we call associate producers. And that's that tier that gets access to everything else that I just said, in addition to some groups that these premium members have access to. But those associate producers get access to that yearly swag pack, which is like going to be this year. It's a custom shirt. It's going to be like, I'm going to get CannaBuzz, like 1/2-ounce Mylar bags, and all kinds of stuff that we're going to send out to the community each year. Because I just think we need more cool cannabis gear out there. Totally. Like if you look up cannabis t-shirts and posters, a lot of this stuff is kind of corny.
Yeah.
Sure.
So we're trying to create cool stuff with the help of our community.
Absolutely. I meant to mention this before I asked you that last question, but I think it's funny that you brought up Dragon's Flames Genetics. His blueberry dragon cheese was actually one of the first lines I started running with when I was first getting into cultivating. So him and
awesome.
Rasta Jeff's Storm Shadow.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
both of those guys, I think both are Jeff, actually. I think that's Dragon Flame's name. But anyways, they're both been great supporters of ours. We've been super fortunate to have people that have believed in us because, back to your earlier question, like most cannabis social networks out there have been a failure. Or unfortunately they have died, right? Because they found, like I said earlier, it's really hard to make money. It's hard enough to make money as a social network to begin with, but it's hard to do it in the cannabis niche because it's just hard to find people out there that are willing to cut you big checks for your little audience, right? Like on CannaBuzz, we have 120,000 people. It's hard to compete against, a Facebook that has 1.5 billion users, right? And people still figure out, even when you can't advertise as a cannabis brand, I still see tons of cannabis brand ads on Facebook because people figure it out, right? They figure out not to say cannabis in the name and just show pictures of leaves or whatever. There's like creative ways. But my point is the money out in the market is not there for us to support a site like us, or at least it's hard to do. Yeah. So with this membership service, it enables us to be more sustainable, and we've been able to be around. And so that, we've been around for 2 years now. And when things like back in December, we were 37,000 people, and we did a live stream with Rasta Jeff. It was our Christmas special for Irie Genetics. It's great. It's up on YouTube. And I interviewed Rasta Jeff. I wanted to learn more about him, how he started Irie Genetics. And then like literally the next day we grew to 100,000 people. Like basically over that following week, we grew from 37,000 to 100,000 people.
Wow.
And it was because Instagram changed their terms of service. On December 22nd, they changed their terms of service, and it really freaked people out that like, oh, we got to go somewhere else. And CannaBuzz has been around for a while. And so CannaBuzz's name got out there, and we just kind of blew up. And that was one of that kind of like crystallizing moment for us, because it brought us out of mostly a grower community to now a much more diverse community. And that has been really awesome and really fulfilling to see, because we started with our core, you know, like the Rasta Jeffs and the Seattle Chronic, like all those guys, and the Dude Grows show. That was where we were like started from. I mean, I literally have a grow tent right next to me. But that growth, that explosion in December, like brought us to a whole new group of people, which has been a lot of fun.
It's only going to go up from here, you know. It's congrats. I can't imagine going from 30 to 100,000 in just a few days. That's a dream.
Yeah, it was nuts. Yeah, I mean, I'm a little exaggerating. It was like, you know, it was like a week and a half, basically. You know, I think it was around New Year's or a little after New Year's, we passed the 100,000 mark. So we went, you know, from 37,000 to 100,000 in a week and a half or so, and it was nuts. You know, it was just a lot of like, you know, running around on Instagram and trying to, you know, share people's stories and just kind of keep the flames going. Yeah, it was an interesting experience for sure.
Yeah, I'd love to get a hold of your algorithm there for that.
Oh, like, you know, that's one of the things, it's hard to reproduce, you know, because what happened is like we had this groundswell of the community talking about us. And then what happened is like a couple influencers asked like, hey, I'm hearing about this thing, CannaBuzz, like what is it, or whatever. And that happened on Koala Puff's Instagram, and Koala Puffs has like 450K subscribers or something, or followers. And she was like, hey, what's this CannaBuzz thing? And then just a bunch of people filled, you know, the story question or whatever reply with, yeah, check it out, you know? And so she signed up, and then she lives with other influencers. So all of a sudden you had one, and now, you know, once several influencers say they're doing something, a bunch of other people follow them because they want to be part of the like wave, you know? And so it just set up like over 2 days. It was insane. We had like 16,000 people join in one day, and 27,000 posts and comments made in that day. It was pretty crazy.
That's
Wow.
awesome.
Now, this might, you know, be a tough question because you have so many people on, but obviously you and JR are the people to follow on CannaBuzz. Can you think of anybody right off the top of your head, one or two people who are got to follow people? I know I'm building my following right now, so I'm trying to find some cool people to follow.
Well, there's tons of different types of content, I guess, that you would like. So if you really love like beautiful bud photos, there's two of my favorites, and they've been around on CannaBuzz forever. So there's Noob Grows. So Noob Grows, he's great. And then the username is Loud, just the word loud. They both take great photos, and they've been on CannaBuzz forever. And then some other people that I've really been enjoying on CannaBuzz, there's a woman named Sanea, Sanea. She's down in San Diego. She's a grower. She's also in school. And so she's just like kicking ass and taking names. And RQ's dad is another guy that I love, and he actually lives out here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And so that's been really fun too, is seeing CannaBuzz get to a point now where, like, I was just emailing a dispensary owner in my town here, and they mentioned that they had heard of CannaBuzz, which is really cool.
Nice.
So we're now getting to that point where word's starting to get out.
You can start having your banner up in all the dispensaries around town.
Yeah, I haven't done that yet. I'm still kind of figuring it out. I emailed one of those billboard companies because I just thought, like, wouldn't it be cool if there was a CannaBuzz billboard like in my town? So I was trying to see how much that would cost. Turns out a little expensive for my budget for now, but maybe eventually.
So we're coming up on the end of part one here, but before we sign off, would you like to clue us in on what your favorite cultivar to smoke and like your favorite way to smoke?
Sure. So I was smoking a joint earlier. There's still a little bit left that I'll imbibe on later. But yeah, so this is actually part of it is a strain that I really enjoy. So this was Forbidden Skittles, I believe. And I love Forbidden Fruit. That's one of those strains that I've just found is one of those perfect mixes for me. It's got tangy and cherry pie in it, and I really like tangy a lot. If you ever get tangy, it's a really great sativa, really great like uplifting strain. But I've grown it, and it can make you kind of like lose track of what you're talking about or whatever. It kind of makes you scramble brained. So I find the cherry pie, which is more of like a indica, it kind of helps round out the rough edges, I guess, and kind of calms it down. And so it makes Forbidden Fruit a really great kind of more chill, uplifting social high, kind of like a Blue Dream, but maybe tastier, I guess. And then I love the first strain that I grew was Granddaddy Purple. And so I think Granddaddy Purple is actually in cherry pie. I can't remember, but Granddaddy Purple and just purple, weeds. I think a lot of people love purple weed, and I'm definitely one of them.
Yeah. I actually love Granddaddy Purp. I had a Granddaddy Purp extract not too long ago that I'm still thinking about today.
Yeah.
It's knocked me out, but it was wonderful. But that we're wrapping up. This is going to kind of wrap up part one. This is a perfect segue where we're going to talk about cultivation and kind of your experience as a cultivator. In part two. So everybody stay tuned, and we'll be back soon. Thanks to our friends here at Rockbox Recording and Production in Rochester, New York. They are a full professional podcast and video studio designed by a radio guy for podcasters. Audio, video, voiceovers, editing, whatever. Mouth off at Rockbox at rockbox.com.
You can follow Cannabis Cum Laude on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and CannaBuzz. Type Cannabis Cum Laude into your search bar and you should be able to find us, but the links will also be posted in the episode notes as well. If you want to help support the show, head on over to Patreon, and that will ensure that we're able to keep the best quality sound and video coming to you on a regular basis. And if you liked what you heard today, please don't forget to rate and review the show.